All right, we got the gears going. We got Sean Highkin with me on the other side. Let's get into this, man. What's good, Knicks Nation? Welcome back to another Game of the Week preview. Tomorrow, you already know what it is. We got the Trailblazers coming through for a matchup at Madison Square Garden. So who better to help preview this game is none other than my guy, Sean Highkin. He covers the Portland Trailblazers for the Rose Garden Report. You can also catch him at Rip City Radio 620, okay? He's a Trailblazers insider, so we're going to get some of that knowledge because you know what's been in the news recently? Apparently the Blazers want Mikal Bridges, so we're going to get to the bottom of that. But first and foremost, make sure that thumbs up button for your squad. Hit that. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. All right? Stay locked in, people. It's about to be a good show as always. So let's get into this one. Sean, how you doing today, my man? How you feeling?
I'm good, Alex. It's good to be with you. I'm, as we were talking about before we got on air, I made it to New York. I am in my hotel in an undisclosed location in the city. I did not make it to D.C. for the second game of this road trip. I got stuck in Boston, but I'm here now, so it's good.
I'm glad to have you here, man. You know, happy that you're here on the show. Appreciate you for, coming through and previewing this game with me. And, hey, as someone who lives out here in Boston, the weather sucks, okay? I still got let me tell you something. I live on a corner right now. My house is on a corner. Had the plows come through. They gave me 5 feet of snow right out in front of my driveway. Took me 7 hours just to get out of my house. Nice 7-hour workout. Disgusting amount of work, man. But it is what it is. We still survive. We keep it kicking, man. You're down in New York. I'm back out moving and grooving from my 9 to 5 and still here. So, hey, that's all, man. That's all we can do. Get a nice little workout in with the snow. But you know what, man? We still got basketball to cover. So let's get right into it, okay? Before we get into the Trailblazer side of things, since this is a Knicks-centric show, I got to ask you, what are your thoughts about the New York Knicks this season?
It hasn't gone the way I think I thought or a lot of people thought, has it, really? Like, coming off of, making the Eastern Conference Finals last year, you thought, okay, they pretty much running back the same group. And, they just obviously decided that things had run their course with Tom Thibodeau, who I covered back in Chicago. And so, maybe they maybe that was the change they needed to make. Obviously, that was not the change they needed to make, and clearly, just they've started winning more lately. But it's I don't know.
What were you expecting from them, man? Were you expecting them to be like a very dominant team, like what you see from like Celtics in the years past, what the Cavs were doing last year? What were you expecting from this Knicks team for the season?
I definitely thought they had a chance to win the East. Just because you look at the East, you don't see like there's no team in the East like, an Oklahoma City or, a Denver or, what Boston was, when they, had Jason Tatum, obviously. Like, you don't see one of those teams. And so, you think, this Knicks team, they were pretty good last year. They easily could win the East. So, I thought, the conference was wide open. I still think that. And I kind of thought the Knicks could be one of the teams that has that could have a chance to to get in there. But clearly there's some weird stuff going on with like the Karl Anthony Towns fit. It seems like him and Mike Brown don't really see eye to eye, and it seems like lately when they've been playing well, it's been when he's been on the bench. I also just think the process behind the coaching change was not the greatest, because I feel like Tibbs is a flawed coach, obviously, and I understand why teams at a certain point decide that it's time to move on from him. But if you're going to fire a coach that good, you better have a replacement lined up, and you better know that it's going to be an upgrade. And Mike Brown, who I don't think is a bad coach, obviously he had success in Sacramento, he had success in Cleveland earlier in his career. You could have done a lot worse as a hire, but it was very obvious that he was like their third or fourth choice for the job. So if you're going to get rid of Tibbs, and then you end up just like striking out on some guys, and then then Mike Brown is who you end up with, it's like, all right. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a very interesting, I guess, it's very interesting how it all played out. Like when you get rid of a head coach and now, you're reaching out to other teams like, hey, can I interview this guy? Can I interview this guy? And then ultimately you settle on Mike Brown, who, look, it's hard to give him a full grade. I would say probably somewhere between a B plus still. Even through the losing streak that the Knicks had through the month of January, I think he's still done a good enough job where it's just different from what Tibbs was giving, just utilizing the bench, giving guys second, third, fourth chance opportunities throughout the season. Guy that comes to mind is Tower Kolek. Well, he started off the season a little shaky, gets a second stint, shows that he's a competent playmaker, then goes through a rough patch, gets benched again, gets back into the game yesterday, gets you 10 assists, and I believe what was 20 minutes. And so he shows you that he's willing to go back to guys when searching for answers on the bench. I do like that just because I feel like you need that type of creativity. There's still some flaws with Mike Brown, when it comes to making challenges on plays. That like when you look on the telecast and you see the replay, like you're gonna challenge that man. That looks kind of obvious. Like we should go after that one. And he kind of holds some of the challenges. There's some stuff there that he could still work on and get better. And obviously, as you mentioned, the whole Karl Anthony Towns situation where not seeing eye to eye, Towns at the beginning of the season saying, I don't know what my role is.
Right.
Still doesn't really know what his role is. If you watched it on the night tonight, like he's not being that productive center that we are accustomed to him doing throughout this entire league. Like we're talking about career low numbers right now. So I feel like those guys have to meet somewhere in the middle. So it's been a little rough stretch, but the Knicks are back on a winning pace right now. 4-game winning streak to be exact. Still got to wait and see what it looks like in the postseason because ultimately that's where he's going to be tested. So
Mm.
there's still like a wait and see approach just because, as we've been discussing, the Knicks are like, especially with James Dolan going on WFAN, the expectation is to get to the finals, man.
Yeah.
And so got to see if they can at least do that. So there's still like a TBD with Mike Brown seeing and what this team is capable of doing. Regardless, do you still think that they have a really good chance to make it out the East? Because it sounds like you're a little like I don't know, you're a little trepidatious and like saying like, yeah, man, maybe the Pistons. Is that what you're thinking?
I don't really have a good read on who I think the favorite is in the East. Like, again, like I said, if you look in the West, I still think Oklahoma City is like a level above everybody else. Like, there's a clear hierarchy there. I don't know if there is in the East, and I like this Detroit team a lot. I think that team is really good, but I kind of wonder if they need one more piece before I can
Mm.
really put them at like a level above everybody else. But like, I think they have a chance. I think even if Jason Tatum doesn't come back, I think the Celtics have a chance. I think, kind of sneakily, the Cavs have won 5 games in a row. They got off to kind of a shaky start. They're
Mm.
obviously underperforming what they did last year when they had the best record in the East. But, I think they've kind of come on lately. I think they've got a shot. Even a team like Philadelphia, I think there's, a chance. They've been better than they were last year, obviously, when they were one of the worst teams in the league because of all the injuries. Like Embiid's been pretty healthy and, VJ Edgecombe is awesome. Like I could see them kind of getting in there, but the Knicks are another team where it's like, yeah, like the difference between the East and the West is in the West there's like maybe one or two teams that you really think have a realistic chance of winning the conference, whereas in the East it's like there's 5 teams where you're like, yeah, I could see it if things go the right way, but I do put the Knicks in that group of one of like the 5 or 6 teams where. Yeah, they get the right matchup. Their guys get healthy. Guys get hot. I could see it.
What would you say you need to see from the Knicks in order for them to be like that solidified? They're making it to the NBA Finals. They're making it to the Eastern Conference Finals, NBA Finals. What would you need to see from them?
Got to figure the cap thing out.
Mm.
Because you can't have a guy making 50 or 60 million or whatever he's making that the coach doesn't like fully trust him. He doesn't fully trust the coach. He's saying he doesn't know what his role is. The last couple, they've found a way to start winning games. It seems like they've kind of turned it around, but they've been playing better. When they've been going on these runs in these last couple of games. It's been when Cat is on the bench. So I mean, is that going to really work in the playoffs? Are people not going to be happy with? I don't know. It's a weird situation.
Certainly a weird situation, and certainly agree. You can't have a man making over $50 million annually and have it being
Uh-huh.
sitting out, being the guy sitting out in the fourth quarter. Totally agree with you on that, Sean. Salute to Nick Station. Thank you all for tuning for another KFTV Game of the Week preview. With me on the other side is my guy Sean Highkin. He covers the Portland Trailblazers for RoseGardenReport.com. You can also find him on Rip City Radio 620. He is a Trailblazers insider. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And shout out to our newsletter. If you haven't done so already, make sure to sign up for the newsletter. That's where you get some of the great written content by our writers. On top of that, that's how you stay up to date on all of our sponsors. And make sure that's how you keep in touch with all the watch parties that we got going on as well. So make sure to go subscribe to the newsletter if you haven't done so already. It's through Beehive. Shout out to Jalen and the crew for holding it down over there. All right, let's get back to it. So Sean, let's talk about your Blazers right now. What has been your overall take, man? They kind of feel like, when we played them last year, even though they weren't winning a lot of games, they felt competitive. Like it was like these
Mhm.
were tight games. It felt like they were in the right trajectory as moving up. Now this season, taking a really good step, Deni being the lead of that. What has been your thought about the Blazers this season?
Well, that game the Knicks played in Portland last year was like one of the best games. Might have been the best game of the year, like across the entire NBA. Where
Yeah.
it was super. I think it had like the second most lead changes in modern NBA history, and then Mikal Bridges hits that buzzer beater in overtime to win
Right.
it. That was an awesome game. That was my favorite game of last year. That was that.
That was a throw, man. That was a wire to
Yeah,
wire throw. You had no idea
yeah,
what was gonna happen.
yeah.
And we
That
didn't
was
have Jalen
that.
Brunson. That's like for that
Yeah.
time period, it was like for the Knicks, I could say from a Knicks perspective, like not having Jalen Brunson, how are they going to respond? Because I think they lost to the Kings. They lost to the Kings or somebody else like right afterwards. And it was a letdown game because Brunson went down against the Lakers. I think they lost to the Kings. It was like, all right, is this team going to rally back against the Trailblazers? And then you see Mikal just take that step and knock down
Yeah.
that game winner. Big one, man. Big one. But hey,
Yeah.
everyone showed
And
out in that
then
one.
yeah, and then that when fast forward to now, when they played each other in Portland a few weeks ago, that was the first game Josh Hart came back for, and you could just and I had Josh in Portland for about a year. So I know kind of what he brings, but you could just see they just function so much better when he's out there.
Hmm.
you know, but as far as the Blazers this year, to your point, they kind of started to take some really positive steps in the second half of last season when they went 23-18, and they went from a team that everybody assumed was just going to be tanking and was going to be trying to get Cooper Flag to a team that at one point actually had a legitimate shot at pushing for the play-in. They obviously didn't get there, but they saw enough growth from, not just Deni Avdija, who you mentioned, who I am pretty sure is going to be named an All-Star this weekend when they announce the All-Star reserves, but also, guys like Tumani Kamara, guys like Shaden Sharp, guys like Scoot Henderson, who had a really strong second half of last season. And, they go into this offseason thinking, we're not rebuilding anymore. We're not tanking anymore. So they go out, they go get Drew Holiday, and that's kind of a sign that's the step that they're taking. And this season, I think it's I think they're kind of right where they should be, and it's actually pretty impressive where they are. They've just lost 3 games in a row, so they're a couple games under 500 now, but they've gotten back to 500 recently, and that's when you keep in mind, you all the different injuries that they've had. Scoot Henderson, who I just mentioned, he has not played this whole season because he's had a torn hamstring since the beginning of training camp. That was somebody they were expecting a lot from this year, and they just haven't gotten anything from him because he's been hurt. Drew
Hmm.
Holiday, who's been awesome when he has played. He's done what he did in Boston. He's just pretty plug and play. He's just brings a steadiness kind of at both ends of the floor. He missed a couple of months with a calf injury. Some of their other guards, like, Blake Wesley, who, you wouldn't think is an important guy, but when, Scoot and Drew are both out, and then, even putting Dame to the side, because obviously Dame isn't even going to play this year. Like, that was that's been known. But, like, you basically don't have a healthy point guard the whole year. And so you're expecting guys like Deni Avdija and Shaden Sharp, who have never really been, primary ball handlers before, to have to step into that role. And then you just have so many other guys in and out of the lineup. Jeremy Grant missed some time. And you go through all of that, and they are still right around 500. They've got two-way guys, Caleb Love and Sidney Sissoko, who've been playing significant roles this season. And by the way, their head coach got arrested by the FBI a day into the season on these gambling allegations. Like that also happened. So, given everything going on right now with the team, with the organization, and with the health and the roster and stuff, being only a couple games under 500 and firmly in the play-in mix, you got to be, if you're a Blazer fan, you got to be happy with where they're at.
Yeah, it got to be, especially with all that adversity that you mentioned. And with them being in the plan, is that like the spot that they just need to be in? Just make the plan, just get at least one game, just show that you're moving in the right direction, get like a high competition game. Is that what you're expecting from this team? Or are you expecting that, not only do they make the plan, but they win through the plan and make the postseason?
They've been very careful since training camp started about not putting any hard expectations on it. I think back in April when Joe Cronin, the GM, and the aforementioned, no longer the head, currently the head coach, but at the time the head coach, Chauncey Billups, they signed contract extensions, and they did a press conference where they both talked about, we don't see this as a rebuilding situation anymore. We're trying to take a step forward. And then at the press conference where they brought Dane back 2 years after he got traded to Milwaukee,
Mm-hmm.
Joe Cronin said it's winning time for Portland now, and so that was kind of what they put out there. And then you look at a move like bringing in a guy like Drew Holiday, and it's pretty clear that that was what their goals were. And then around media day in September, we asked them we asked them outright, is the playoffs the goal this year? And Joe Cronin kind of said, well, we just want to take steps forward. We want to make progress. I think he kind of knew in the back of his mind that the West is so deep that they could take, real steps forward and still just be a play-in team just because there are so many good teams in the West.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if they make the actual playoffs, whether they get up into the top six, which I don't think is impossible, or because they have they're starting to get guys healthy, and B, they have a pretty favorable schedule going forward the rest of the way. So, if I think it's a possibility they get up to the top six, but even if they, stay in the play-in and they make it out of the play-in and get it into the playoffs, I think they would view that as a huge success. They're definitely not really thinking about, draft position anymore, which is what they went into the previous 2 seasons doing.
Hey, that's a lot of growth for a team that, as you mentioned, they were just thinking about, hey, let's tank for Cooper Flag, and next thing you know,
Uh-huh.
push play in, and now they are in the play in, and hey, I still think this team has a really good chance. I know the Clippers are making a slight
Yeah.
surge after having a slow start this season. You got the Warriors, you still have Steph, but they lost Jimmy. Phoenix having a nice story based on what they just did, offloading Beal, offloading Kevin Durant, getting
Uh-huh.
Dylan Brooks. I feel like that playing category, it can go anyone's way between those
Yeah.
four teams right there. I feel like it's really good. So Portland's in a really good situation right now where if they're getting guys healthy, especially with the Warriors who are dealing with injury right now, there's a really good chance that you guys could take out the Clippers, who also don't have Bradley Beal. I know that that's not really
That
changed
might
anything
be a
because you got
help. That might
that.
be a
It
help,
might be helpful for them, right?
honestly.
It might be a positive for them. But
Yeah.
not having Beal, but you still have Kawhi, you still have Harden. Like Sting's
Mhm.
just, I mean, it's Harden too. Harden is a known choke artist, but hey, who I feel like that's still a good
Great
matchup for
regular
them.
season player, which matters for the play in and the standing stuff. So, whatever happens in the playoffs, that's not really what we're talking about here.
Exactly, but they have a really good chance. I like Portland. They're a team that I've been like, tapping in here time to time when I get a chance. I'm not watching the Knicks. Like they're a very interesting team. I also do
Mhm.
like Donovan Clingan. I do like his presence at the five. I think he's a really good center, man. I
Yeah.
think he's got a really good future ahead of him in Portland. But outside of like the Trailblazers and what they've done this season, it seems like they're going to be buyers at the deadline this year. And a name that popped up is shout out to Jake Fisher, who
Mhm.
covers the league for Mark Stein's Substack, talking about the Trailblazers having some interest in Mikal Bridges by the deadline and trying to, angle themselves where they could help the Knicks in a three-team deal where the Blazers would get Mikal, I guess the Knicks, and not I guess, but the Knicks would get Drew Holiday, you know, Bucks would get Towns, and then the Knicks would get Giannis. What do you think about the Trailblazers being linked to wanting Mikal Bridges and potentially angling themselves in a deal like this?
I think it's a little bit overblown. I don't really
Mm,
see that as a real possibility, quite frankly. So there's a few things here. It's definitely true that the Blazers have been interested in Mikal Bridges in the past.
hmm
Like a few years ago, before Dame requested a trade, when they got the third pick in the lottery that they ended up using to draft Scoot Henderson, and they were looking around to see what they could get for that pick as far as like veteran guys that they could get to put next to Dame to kind of retool there. Mikal Bridges was somebody that they were looking at pretty heavily at that point. Him and Dame are very close, and then also, at the time, that seemed like the kind of guy. He seemed like kind of a rising star. It was somebody that made a lot of sense. Brooklyn was not interested in trading him, even for the third overall pick in the draft. Which, considering how much they ended up getting for him from the Knicks, that ended up being the right decision on their end to not just trade him for, Scoot Henderson and salary filler or whatever. Like
Hmm.
that ended up being kind of the right move there. But I'll put it this way. So those picks that the Blazers have from Milwaukee, they have the swap rights with Milwaukee in 28 and 30, and they have the Bucks pick outright in 29.
Hmm.
If the Bucks trade Giannis, those picks, like they're probably going to be bad no matter kind of what they get back. So those picks are really those picks could be really valuable. And so the Blazers, if they wanted to, could, use those picks as as the third team, as the facilitator, peel off a player that helps them now, give the Bucks their picks back. So the idea behind what, and Jake's a friend. I know Jake very well. Like Jake is great at what he does. The idea behind, what Jake wrote about as far as, Portland jumping in as a facilitator for a third team and, getting an asset or something, that's a real, thing that I think they'll look at depending on what the thing is. To me, the bar for what they would want to get back in doing that is a little bit higher than Mikal Bridges.
Hmm.
Like I feel like, I mean, and I feel like, how hard they went after him in 2023. There's a few things that are different right now than there were back then. At the time they were like desperate to get veterans to, keep Dame from requesting a trade. That's obviously not really a factor anymore. That already happened, and they did that trade, and now Dame's back.
Right.
Uh, Mikal Bridges at the time was 26. He's going to be 30 at the start of next season, so it's not quite, the same thing age-wise. Mikal Bridges was on a very, very team-friendly extension that he had signed with the Suns at that time. He was making like low 20s per year. He's making what he's making now with the Knicks. He's about to go into the first year of that, 4-year, $150 million extension. And, at the time, he gets traded to Brooklyn from Phoenix as part of the Kevin Durant trade. He has that incredible like second half of that first season in Brooklyn where he's averaging 26 a game, and he has a couple of really good games for them in the playoffs. And it seems like he's kind of a rising star and like maybe a future all-star.
Hmm.
That hasn't really happened for him since then. He's a good player, he's a good role player, but like, all those things together, like I don't know how much it makes sense for Portland to give up, all three. Like, if you're talking about giving up one of those Bucks picks and getting back Mikal Bridges, on his current contract at his current age, as opposed to what it was, 3 or 4 years ago when they were really interested in him, something like that I think could be reasonable. But to me, and this is just my opinion, this isn't like sourced intel of like what they're actually looking at or talking about, but like if they're gonna jump in as a third team in a Giannis trade and give the Bucks their picks back to help a different team get Giannis, I think you're kind of wanting like Amen Thompson or Jalen Johnson or like a player like that back in order to give up all that stuff to help another team get Giannis, more so than like a Mikal Bridges or another name that's come up. You saw the reports today, I'm sure, about Minnesota maybe jumping into the mix. Jaden McDaniels, I kind of put in the same category as Mikal, where it's like, good player, but is he worth giving up all of that Bucks stuff to get? I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't blame you on the value of Mikal Bridges changing. Even as a Knicks fan and watching it, there's on some nights there's you earn for a little bit more out of him. Some nights like last night, puts up 30 points, looks phenomenal, getting you the
Mm-hmm.
assists, getting you some of the rebounds. Other nights he can go kind of to the wayside and be like a guy who looks like a legitimate role player and just goes into the back. Like it looks like,
Yeah.
where is he? And for that, I can understand where, a team like Portland, like if you have those assets and you talk about, hey, we're going to trade Giannis, these picks will be valuable. You're kind of looking for someone closer to what Giannis is than someone what Mikal is. So that makes sense.
Right.
So
Yeah.
then who would be that player then that Portland is looking for if they're trying to make a deal by the deadline? Or are they even trying to make a deal by the deadline at this point? And or are they still trying to hold on to those picks?
I don't know if I mean, well, also a couple things. One, this front office, which, Joe Cronin took over as GM when Neil Olshey was fired for HR workplace violations about 5 years ago. This front office has really not made big moves in season. Whenever they've made a big move to bring in like a real like name, like win now type of guy, whether Jeremy Grant in 2022, Deni Avdija in 24, Drew Holiday this past summer. They've always done that in the offseason and not. And that's not to say they couldn't do something in season. I'm just telling you, we have, a 4 or 5 year track record now of if they're going to make a big move like that, they're going to do it more in the offseason when stuff opens up. You see how the lottery shakes out. You see what picks different teams have. You see, teams, it's easier, logistically to move contracts around, especially when you're talking about the size of salary of like some of this Giannis stuff or some of the, the names that would have to be involved in there. Those deals are just always easier to get done in the offseason. So they tend to do more of that kind of stuff in the offseason than they do at the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't think, and I think they are pretty realistic about this, I don't think they feel like if we trade for, whoever, Mikal Bridges, Jaden McDaniels, Trey Murphy, whoever, somebody like of that level, like, a good wing, but like not like an all-star. If they trade for they don't feel like, if we get Mikal Bridges, now we're a title contender the rest of this season, we could win the West. I don't think they're there yet. They have obviously made some, some strides from where they were last year. I think they're firmly in the play-in mix. They could be a playoff team, but I don't think trading for Mikal Bridges or Jaden McDaniels makes them of the caliber of like Oklahoma City or San Antonio or Denver. So I don't know if they're like, we have to make an upgrade, right now at the deadline. The other thing to keep in mind is that ownership is about to change. The team, there's an agreement by the Paul Allen estate to sell the team to a group led by Tom Dundon, who's the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes. It's an agreement. It's a signed agreement. The sale technically hasn't gone through yet. I think it's going to get approved in a couple months at the Board of Governors meeting. They might want to wait to add like a real, add long-term salary, make a real big move like that until the new owner is fully in place and running things. Like, so there's that part of it too. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that there's no chance that they do anything big at the deadline because we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary of Luka Doncic getting traded to the Lakers. So I'm never going to rule anything out completely. But the other thing I'll also say is that when you look at those things that Portland has done in the past as far as like the bigger moves they've made. They trade for Drew Holiday this past offseason. There were, I read as much of this stuff as you guys do as far as like all the different insiders like Jake Fisher, Mark Stein, everybody that's like reporting this stuff. There was not a word anywhere about Portland being interested in Drew Holiday until they did that trade. A year earlier when they traded for Deni Avdija, nobody had any clue that like they were talking about like Deni Avdija was like nobody thought like, oh yeah, he's available. That's somebody that Portland's interested in. That's somebody they're looking at. Even when they traded Dame to the Bucks, if you remember that whole offseason, it was like, he wants to go to Miami. Miami is offering this. Maybe Toronto's going to get in the mix. A couple of other teams. The first time anybody heard about the Bucks being an option was when the Woj tweet came out that was where he was getting traded to. So this Portland front office, like the stuff they actually end up doing does not really usually get out ahead of time that they're looking at it. So I honestly, man, like even as somebody that covers this team and talks to these people, if I were going to sit here and say, confidently like, oh, I know they've had talks about this guy. I know they've liked, I know that they're looking at this. I know that they're offering this for this guy. That stuff doesn't really get out there in any real way for these guys. I can tell you a few, like I can just kind of go off of like, past stuff. They have in the past been interested in Mikal Bridges. I don't know if they are to that degree now. I can tell you I don't think they're interested in Karl Anthony Towns. I don't think that's, somebody they're really looking at, especially with the money that he's making. So, I really, I think it's possible they could be buyers, but just going off, again, their track record, I think it's more likely that if they make a big move like that to really try to, a real win now move, they tend to do more of that stuff in the offseason than they do at the deadline.
Well, there you have it, people. It's a wait and see approach for Portland right now. A wait and see approach. So we'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens.
And by the way, I don't think Giannis is going to get traded in the next week. I think that's going to be I think, from the Bucks end, it's easier for them to, obviously you put it out there now that you're taking offers just to kind of see what's out there, but the Knicks are going to be able to offer more draft picks in the summer. Miami's going to be able to offer more draft. Like, there's not like the Bucks aren't going anywhere whether they keep Giannis or not this season. What do they have to lose by waiting it out and seeing what the offers look like in the summer? And if they wait until the summer, then yeah, I mean, maybe the bidding opens up. Maybe more teams decide. After this season plays out and some teams decide, you know what, I think we're closer than we thought. Like let's take a swing and go for Giannis, or hey, we're not as good as we thought. Maybe we need to like make a run at Giannis as kind of a last ditch thing. And then maybe some different stuff opens up, and then maybe I could see Portland getting in more as like, let's give the Bucks back these picks because there might be some different guys available. To me, right now, I don't think Mikal Bridges is like at the level of, yeah, let's give the Bucks back these super valuable far out picks, and that's who you get back.
Hey, the one thing I'll say about the Giannis thing is that he will be going into the offseason with essentially, I know he has 2 years, but that last year would be a player option.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a team and you want to go and invest in Giannis, you damn well better know that he wants to be there for years to come before you make that investment. So that's probably the only thing. So even though they would be
Yeah.
able to get more assets, you better know for sure that, that's probably going to be a negotiation leverage saying, hey, we still got to make him
Yeah.
happy. I don't know if we can give up everything for that. That would be the only
And
thing I got to say
that's
on that.
and that's a difference between this situation and the Dame situation because, when Dame requested a trade from Portland, his whole thing was Miami, Miami, Miami. I only want to go to Miami. He had 4 years left on his contract, so he could say all he wants. I want to go to Miami, and the Blazers could be like, all right, cool. We
Yeah,
don't like their
exactly.
stuff. Whatever. What are you going to do?
Exactly. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. The trade deadline is going to be
Very
interesting,
interesting.
and this offseason
Yeah.
is going to be very interesting. Once
Yeah.
again, salute to Knicks Nation. Thank you all for tuning for another Game of the Week preview. With me on the other side is my guy, Sean Highkin. He covers the Portland Trailblazers for RoseGardenReport.com. You can also find him on Rip City Radio 620. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And people, let me tell you something. There's a lot of things I trust in this world, but there's one thing that I trust the most, and that is Mando. Okay, new year, new me, right? We talk about leaving certain things in the past, bad habits, bad vibes, but there's one thing I'm absolutely bringing with me into 2026, and that's Mando whole body deodorant. I've been using Mando as part of my daily routine, and what I love most is the confidence I get from it. This isn't just for your pits. Mando is a whole body deodorant, safe to use anywhere, pits, thighs, feet, everywhere you need it. Once you start using it, you realize how clutch that actually is. My go-to is a solid deodorant stick. It's powdered by mandelic acid, which helps stop odor before it even starts. They also have a spray option that's aluminum free and perfect for those hard to reach spots. Everything is baking soda free as well, paraben free, and the scents are clean. Bourbon leather, clover woods, pro sport, all fire options. Mando was actually created by a doctor who saw how normal body odor was being misdiagnosed and mistreated, and it's clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. I did not stutter. 72 hours. That's real protection right there, not just masking things with a fragrance. Some men mask their BO with scents. Mando men get the job done right. Don't mask it, Mando it. You can find Mando in Walmart, Target, and retailers nationwide. But for the best deals, head to shopmando.com. For a limited time, new customers get 20% off site-wide plus free shipping when you use the code KFTV at shopmando.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the promo code KFTV at shopmando.com. Don't mask it, Mando it. All right, let's get back to it. All right, Sean, let's get into the game now. We got through all the pleasantries with the storylines and the potentials of Giannis and Bridges to Portland. Let's talk about this
Yeah.
game, man. Let's get into it. So I'm looking at this game. We all know the Knicks won the first matchup out in Portland, and I know Portland wants to come back and get their get back against New York, especially at the world's most famous arena. And one area that I'm looking at right now is the second chance opportunities. Both teams are really good. They're in the top five according to NBA.com stats. Portland Trailblazers are number two right now, averaging about 18 points off of second chance opportunities. Knicks not too far behind with 17 points. I feel like that's going to be a real battleground in this matchup. Clingan, Mitch just controlling the boards and giving their team second chance opportunities. What do you think about that stat right there and being on the lookout for that area of the game?
I mean, that's been a big part of the Blazers' success all season, and a big part of that is who you mentioned, Donovan Clingan, who is leading the league in offensive rebounds with 4.6 per game, and then also, Robert Williams, who's been healthy, more healthy this season than he's been in a few years. He's really great at that too. But to me, the bigger thing for the Blazers there's two things that when they are losing games that these are the things that they are that come back and hurt them. One is turnovers, which that's part of that is not having a point guard for most of the season. And the other thing is, and this is a really weird thing that I don't even know what you do about, but they're weirdly having issues for a lot of the season with free throws.
Hmm.
Like the game they just lost to the Wizards a couple nights ago, they lost that game by 4 points and they missed 10 free throws. And I can think of other games this season off the top of my head where they lost by single digits and they miss a ton of free there's stuff like that that I think is a bigger key for these guys. But they definitely they just had that stretch where they won 4 in a row, they won 10 of 13 games, and then they've just lost their last three. So they definitely would be a good opportunity tomorrow to end this road trip on a high note before they come back home for a couple weeks.
Interesting that you mentioned the free throw percentage. I just pulled that up, and the Trailblazers are 23rd right now in the league. When it comes to their free throw percentage, they're shooting a whopping 77.3% right now. Knicks are currently 12th, shooting
Yeah.
79%. Knicks have, I mean, not too long ago, they just shot under 60%. I forget against who that was. I think it may have been Philly or Sacramento. It was one of those two teams, but both teams, it could be interesting who can get to the free throw line and get their shots. But another area I'm looking at, especially for a team like the Trailblazers that are very quick, very athletic, is the points off of turnovers.
Uh-huh.
Portland right now is number 10 when it comes to points off of turnovers, and the Knicks have been very sloppy as of late when it comes to protecting the basketball. Let me make sure I get this right. Through the last 5 games, the Knicks are 20th right now with allowing 16 turnovers per game. They had 20 not too long ago against the Kings, which was just awful. But as of late, especially for the new calendar year, the Knicks haven't been doing a great job of protecting the basketball. And even that was a little bit of an issue against Portland in their first matchup. I'm hoping that the Knicks can protect it, but I'm going to be looking to see if the Knicks continue to struggle in that area, then I think Portland will have a very good chance at getting out into a very good lead against the Knicks, because it's been early in the games where they've been just very loosey goosey with the basketball.
Well, the problem is Portland, they do score in transition. They do take advantage of turnovers. They also give a lot of them back. So,
Hmm.
that could be, they had 20 turnovers the other night against the Celtics, or they had, or against the Wizards. They just it's they do that. And again, part of this is also that guys like Deni Avdija and Shaden Sharp, who aren't traditional point guards, have had to do a lot more as far as ball handling stuff because their point guards have been out for so much of the season. But it's that's been an issue for the Blazers too, is the amount of turnovers that they've had, and the amount that they've kind of let teams. There were a couple of different times in the game against the Celtics on Monday where they cut the lead. They cut the lead at 1 point to 8, and then every single time they come down the floor, they have it. They get a stop, but then they come back and they either turn the ball over or they take a bad shot, or they score a lot in transition, but they also they give up a lot too.
Yeah, that's well, that would play out to the Knicks' favor, because I'm just pulling it up right now and I see that what you're talking about. Portland's actually dead last when it comes to stopping teams out in transition. So
Yep,
it'll be a
sounds
good
about
track
right.
meet. Yeah, it'll be a good
Yeah,
track meet. I mean, it was a high offensive scoring affair in the first game, so
yeah,
it should be another. I'm expecting something very similar in this second matchup. Um, the last area I'm looking at is the rebounding area. Both
yeah.
teams top when it comes to rebounding. Obviously, the guys that we
Mhm.
mentioned, Clingan and Mitch, are going to be leading that way. But I feel like whoever controls the glass, which was the case in the first matchup, Knicks won 45-39 in the first round. I feel like whoever controls the rebounds in this one is going to be the will determine who wins this game.
Yeah, and the Blazers have a lot of other, not just at their center position with Donovan Clingan and Rob Williams, but Deni Avdija is a really good rebounder for a wing. Drew Holiday, as a guard, like he gets in there, does a lot of that stuff. So they have other guys that can do that, but to your point, I think just like it was in the last game, I think that's going to be something that, is one of the swing factors for this game for sure.
For sure. And the Knicks have guys like that too. OG's been doing a good job this year. Josh
Yeah.
Hart,
Yeah.
fantastic rebounding guard, I'm
Yeah.
sure,
I
as
had
you're
him
well
in
aware.
Portland. I'm very well aware. Yeah.
Yeah, loves to get out in transition too. He loves to get out in transition. So we got guys as well that can, who aren't just Mitch that can go out there and grab boards. So that'll be a good one. But outside of like those key stats and what should be, areas that I'm looking at in this matchup, the key matchup for me though is going to be Mikal Bridges against Deni Avdija. I feel like you're going to
Mhm.
see them matched up. I'm sure OG will get his shot at guarding Deni as well because of the physicality that he brings to the game. But I feel like a lot of this game is going to be predicated on the wings. Obviously, we know what Bridges did last year with the game-winning shot. In
Mhm.
that first, was it in the first matchup? Bridges had 18 points, went 8 of 15 from the field. So an efficient night for him with the 6 assists and 6 boards. So he had a nice vital role in that win. And then Deni, 25 points, 8 of 17 from the field, 8 of 10. He just has a knack for getting to the free throw line just by being physical and getting downhill. Got his 5 boards and 4 assists as well. So I feel like those two guys are really where the mark is going to be made in this game. And yeah, I'm just gonna be fascinated by how both of them just like attack this one. Does Mikal continue to work off what he did last night against why am I blanking on who they played last night? What do we just cover that game? Who they play last night? This is a terrible
Toronto.
Toronto.
Was it?
Thank you. Appreciate it. Sean
Yeah.
Sean with the alley. Too many games at this point. You get through halfway through the season doing every
Yeah.
single post game. It starts
It's
all
that
to
time of
blend in
year,
as one,
brother.
man. Starts to blend in all as one. But last night you
Yeah.
had Mikal with 30 points, man. And so he was the real I won't say that. OG was the leader. That was my game. That was my player of the game last night. But he came through. Mikal came through in the clutch. I'm not gonna give CP that win. So Mikal was doing the damn thing, gave 30 points last night. I think he needs to continue that type of hot streak, especially with his name being in all the tabloids, the questioning of his aggression. He has to come through again in another night to show that he can do this against Portland. And obviously, we know what Denny's going to do.
Do we know what Denny's going to do? Because that's going to be kind of an X factor for me too.
Really?
Because Denny is working back from a back, which he had that back injury in that Knicks game. With about 2 minutes left to go in that game, the one a few weeks ago in Portland, he tweaked his back, missed a few games, came back for a couple games, looked awesome, re-injured the back against Miami about like 2 minutes into the second half,
Oof.
missed 2 games, and then he just came back for the first time after that second injury of the back against the Wizards, and he had an okay game, but it wasn't like what he's been doing the whole season. He looked kind of tentative. He looked kind of rusty. So I mean, he's listed as questionable. I would expect that he plays tomorrow, but having 2 days, full days off now between the last game and this game, maybe he looks a little bit fresher like he did after he missed a few games and had a few days off before. But if Denny is compromised or he's not fully back fully at 100%, that's certainly going to put a wrench in this game because he was so good at the beginning of that last Knicks game, and then when he got hurt, it just like took any chance that they had of like making a comeback.
Okay. Well, you know what it is? It is Madison Square Garden. People come back to Madison Square Garden and start looking like their normal self. So I would not
Yeah,
put it past anybody if Denny came back and was putting on a show in front of the Garden crowd.
yeah.
But still, those are my two guys that I'm looking out for. Is there any other matchups that you're looking in this game, or any other players that you're going to be on the lookout for this matchup?
I just, from a Blazers standpoint, I'm still interested. I mean, Shaden Sharp had a really good game against the Wizards. He had a couple of rough games before that. So, if he can, especially if Denny is still, working back from this back injury, if Shaden can give them, that number one option offense, type of production that he's been capable of at times, but it's been a little bit inconsistent lately. That would be, that would be another guy that I would point to as kind of an X factor from the Blazers end.
Yeah, Shannon Sharp played very well in the last game too. He had 23 points,
Yeah.
9 of 17
Yeah.
from the field, 4 from the free throw line, got his 6 boards, 3 assists, and his
Hmm.
2 steals. Very athletic, man. It just looks
He
like
can
he's
do that.
gliding. It just looks like he's gliding on air, man, the way that he
Yeah.
plays. And he just levitates when he goes for a dunk. He's a
Hmm.
guy I'm looking out for as well, just because of his athleticism. And the Knicks are not the most athletic team, so I'm just curious. Like I know he got his last game, and I know we just constantly threw bodies, Hart, Bridges, everybody got a chance to guard Sharp. I'm just
Hmm.
curious, what's the plan for this time around? You saw them once not too long ago. What's the game plan for him? Because it was him and Deni really leading the way with Caleb off the bench in that first matchup against the Knicks. So he's a guy that you got to keep in check just because of his explosiveness. So curious how they're going to start off with that one. Maybe put Hart on him, try to roughen him up a bit. Maybe you go Bridges if you don't want to go with Bridges on Deni to start out the game. You put OG on him. It's gonna be an interesting way how they deploy the starting lineup tomorrow.
Well, the Knicks just have so many. I mean, the Knicks and the Blazers are kind of built sort of. I mean, not exactly the same way, but they are kind of built the same way. Where it's like, you have like, and what's funny is that like the team that they gave to Jalen Brunson is kind of exactly the team that Dame always wanted the Blazers to give him when he was there before.
Mm.
Like, you look at like guys, having Josh Hart, OG, and Mikal around, a guard like a Jalen Brunson or like a Dame. That's exactly what Dame wanted, and that's kind of what Dame is coming back to. But yeah, like that, like for tomorrow, yeah, like for how the Knicks are going to guard Shaden Sharp, you just named three guys that are probably as good as anybody at guarding guys like that.
Hey, it'll be a fascinating matchup, and then of course, going to be curious to see what Brunson and obviously Cat do tomorrow. Can Cat bounce
Uh,
back? He didn't have a good game against Toronto. Neither did Brunson. Both those guys were just out of it. Um, I know Brunson was dealing with a sickness. Not sure what Cat has been doing with this entire season, but just looking for him to get into rhythm, just because he's just really needed. But yeah, I would say from a Knicks standpoint, outside of Bridges, very curious actually to see what OG does tomorrow, because I feel like he's going to be utilized the most just defensively here. There's so many opportunities for him to guard multiple players, play help defense, probably take on the Avdija matchup as well. There's just a lot of things you can do with OG just because of his versatility. So I'm curious to see if he can just follow up his really good performance against Toronto with another good performance against Portland, because he did have a good matchup against them too. Had 24 points, 9 of 15 from the field, 4 of 7 from downtown. Let's see if he can keep that magic going as well. So that's another guy that I'm looking at. But who's your X factor? Who's your X factor for tomorrow's game?
Probably Deni Avdija, just because of the health stuff, and he's working his way back. But if he has like a normal Deni All Star caliber game, I think the Blazers have a very good chance at winning this game. But as we've seen when he's been out, they've kind of had to manufacture points other ways, and they've been able to at times. But you're asking a lot of a guy like, a City Sissoko who, is a two-way guy that is, not used to like that type of usage, or, you don't know exactly what you're going to get from Shaden Sharp on a night-to-night basis. Tumani Kamara is another guy we've like barely talked about. Like he's, made his bones in the NBA as a defender, but, the offense is still kind of getting there. It's been better lately, but like if they've got Deni, they kind of have their offensive game plan. If they don't, they got to kind of patch something together.
Okay. So Denny is going to be the guy that you're going to utilize as the X factor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with mm, go with Miles McBride for tomorrow's my X factor.
Yeah.
Guy who's going to come off the bench. He's probably going to get another opportunity to guard Sharp as well. Just be utilized as that top perimeter defender that he is, and then need the shooting. Just need his shooting and constant offense. A guy that can pull up from three. I feel like he's going to be another impactful player, especially from the defensive standpoint. Just because, once again, Blazers. It's funny that you mentioned that both teams are built similarly. I'm just curious to see how you just guard all these athletic players that the Blazers got, and I think for tomorrow's matchup, McBride's going to be a key guy that's going to help in that area. And he's been playing well on the season, having a really good season. Has been in and out of the lineup for various reasons, but every time he's come back, he's been pretty consistent. He's probably been the most consistent guy this season, out of everybody on the roster, just for what his role is. So shout out to, outside of the captain, obviously Jalen Brunson, but
Yeah.
shout out to Deuce McBride, man, for being a consistent player. But yeah, appreciate you for coming through, Sean. Appreciate you
Yeah,
for
of
coming
course.
through,
No, this is
and
fun. Happy to do
it was
this.
great time, great time. Appreciate you
Yeah,
for coming through.
absolutely.
Please let the listeners know where they can find you. If you've got any work up and coming, we should be on the lookout for.
RoseGardenReport.com. Become a paid subscriber if you're interested in coverage of the Trailblazers. And then I'm also on, as you mentioned, Rip City Radio, which is the team's flagship station, part of iHeart. I make appearances on there, and other than that, just follow me on all the social media platforms at Highkin, which is my last name. That's my name on all the Twitter, Instagram, all that.
Awesome. Appreciate you once again, Sean, for coming through. And salute to Knicks Nation for tapping in for another game of the week preview. And I'm sure there's some Trailblazers fans out there, man, tapping in. I
Could
know
be.
I know how it all goes, man. You all want to hang out. This goes for every fan base, Sean. They all like to hang out in the background, not say any word on a Knicks-centric channel. But
Yeah.
then after the game, God forbid that we lose and the opponent wins, then you all start to flood the chat and be like, "Ha ha, we win, Knicks suck," da, 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 all this stuff, man. So that's always how it goes. So I know you're all out there, man. I know you're all out there, but I appreciate you all for tuning in as always. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boy. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Make sure to give Sean a follow if you haven't done so already. Does phenomenal work covering the Trailblazers, so make sure to go check out his work. And once again, appreciate all you for tapping in. Shout out to all of our franchise channel members in here, man. We got Zach in here. Shout out to you, Zach. We got John Talento, a regular as always. Jason, shout out to you for the $50 super chat. Appreciate you, Jason. Who else we got in here? We got uh we got Ed in here. Shout out to Ed as well. We got Mellow Mike. Appreciate you. We got William J. Bowman in here too. Appreciate you as well. Appreciate everybody for coming through, man, for another game of the week preview. Shout out to you as well, Gio. Appreciate you. Appreciate for all the franchise channel members and all of Knicks Nation just coming through once again. And remember, people, you can support our sponsors, Mando. All right. Make sure to support our sponsor, Mando. Go over to shopmando.com and use that promo code KFTV to get to 20% off plus free shipping on deodorant that covers you for up to 72 hours. Doesn't have any aluminum, man. All natural products. That's what you need in your life, man. Go protect your body and go do something that helps it be better and feel better. So make sure to go support Mando. Make sure to go support our newsletter, okay? We got Jalen, Jeff, we got Omar, we got Chris, we got everybody doing the damn thing over there, just creating great written content as well. Remy giving you his Remy recast. We got a lot of great writers contributing over there. So make sure to go check out their written work through our newsletter. That's also where you get to learn about other sponsors when we have watch parties and anything that's just going on with the channel. So make sure to go subscribe to the newsletter if you haven't already done so. And make sure to go to KnicksFanTV.com/shop, man. Go get your merch. Go get your merch, man. Got the hats. Go get the crews. Go get anything, man. We got a lot of stuff on the website, so make sure to go check it out. Go peruse and see if you want some new Knicks gear and go be fashionable out there. So make sure to go check it out. Appreciate everyone for tuning in once again. We'll catch you tomorrow for post game as always after the Knicks take on the Trailblazers, and make sure to stick around for play-by-play tomorrow as well with CK2K. All right, everyone. Appreciate you for tapping in once again. We out.